Welcome back, everybody. It's been quite some time since you've seen me. I'm going to give you some updates into my world, and then I'm going to review the first pod of 2022. I know it's a little late in the season. We'll get to that. Be right back. So, before I get into the hot stuff, a little bit of updates on me. Last time you saw me, you saw I had a freshly hatched new little kitten. Well, that new little kitten has grown up into a full-size, well, I guess it's a cat now. He'll still always be my little kitty. Well, you might have noticed that I called him a he. As it turns out, the one that we thought was a girl was actually a boy and still has a very, very high-pitched voice. He's as sweet as can be, and the name that ended up sticking was Sleepy. Long story short, we originally came up with, I came up with the name Sweet Pea, and I wanted one that was similar to that once I discovered that Sweet Pea was a boy. Some have told me that Sweet Pea would have been a fine name for a boy, and to be fair, that's very true. And he is still kind of my little Sweet Pea. But Sleepy is what we call him, and that is him. Where have I been? Let me push this back just a smidge. I have been here. Nothing much has changed. You can see my surroundings are basically the same. What happened last year? Well, there was a combination of things. It wasn't that I got bored doing the videos. It was that I had other things come up that sort of took precedent over making the videos, and I stuck myself into that. Combine that with the fact that my grow last year was not nearly as good as it was in the years before. And I figured out there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them, fully admitting, is totally my fault. I had not been keeping up with the quality of the soil in my deck garden. It was very rich, very nutrient rich. I could still see it was very black and it had a good, nice earthy smell to it. However, compaction was my problem. I wasn't adding anything that aerated the soil. It didn't give anywhere for roots to grow, so they had to try that much harder just to grow a little bit. That being said, when they have to put all that effort into growing roots, they're not putting enough effort into growing the plants, so they were stunted from the very start. This year, I have a raised bed. I'll get into more of that in just a moment. But next year, I should be back in full force. So, with that, I'm going to talk about one of the ones that is in my raised bed this year. That is the Jamaican mushroom. I've had some pretty good luck with this plant. I actually grew one last year, but I didn't have many on it. I had very few, in fact. And the one that's out there this year, though it's a small plant and I got it started a little bit late, has put out more already. Now, normally, this is where I would say we're going to go outside and we're going to check out the plant, but there's two reasons we're not going to do that today. First and foremost, people up the road from me are blaring music really, really loudly. And I could just show you a clip of the plant without me speaking over it, but that's kind of not what my videos do for the most part. So I'm just going to leave it out on this one. It is a capsicum chinense, which means you're going to see pods growing 2 or 3 out of one stem. That is what happens with this one. And it is, reason 2 is it's a little bit stunted. Now, what I was saying about my plants not being super good this year, I got a very, very late start. The raised bed was going to be put in April. Get down, good. The raised bed was going to be put in April. That way the plants that I had started inside were going to be ready to go out. They'd go right in there. April came around and the one who was helping me with it had to go into surgery. So there was some recovery from a surgery. Then it ended up taking longer because after the surgery he got sick. And between all the things that happened, we ended up not getting it in until June. So my plants that were inside were still inside until right about June 1st. Now they were super root bound, they were really small, and when I put them in that soil, they weren't able to really take to it as well as if they had been established and were able to take in more light to get nutrients. It was, it just was not a recipe for really good success this year. Next year, the raised bed's up. I'm gonna start in January or February. I'm gonna get them in the ground on time because it's gonna take me far less effort to get them going, and we're gonna have a much better year. Hopefully you'll see more than a couple videos. This year I'm not gonna have many. Just had to go ahead and get that out there. I know a lot of you who are just dying to see more of me, all one or two of you, are not going to have a whole lot of updates. That being said, I am going to cut this right quick so I can go prepare, because from what I understand, this can get a little bit warm. Be right back. We're back, and yeah, I'm actually really thirsty anyway, so it kind of works out. And this one loves milk. You're not supposed to give milk to cats, but this one, he kind of craves it. I give him a little tiny bit every so often, but not much. You're not getting any of this right here. See, he likes it. It's in my breath now. So, not here to talk about you. Go away. About this, Capsicum chinense, like I said, which means it could cross fairly easily with a lot of the super hots. Now, I don't know if anyone has decided to combine this Jamaican mushroom, which, by the way, I'm sure it gets its name because it looks a little bit like a mushroom cap. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to combine these with something like a Reaper to get a mushroom-shaped Reaper that was ridiculously hot and also kind of neat to look at. But it seems like it could be an interesting concept. I'm not big on crossing myself. It's a lot of work, and I do this sort of as a hobby. So most sources say that this falls somewhere around the Scotch bonnet territory, which is a little under the orange habanero, at somewhere between 100 and 200,000 on the Scoville scale. 200,000, from what I understand, sort of puts it into the super hot category. 100,000 puts it into the very hot category. Either way, I have the strange feeling I'm looking into something quite warm today, because I'm kind of, as they say, actually, as I say, out of shape, because I haven't had a whole lot of raw peppers since the last time you saw me. We're going to take a look at the pod itself here. And we've already gotten a pretty good look at the outside, so I'm going to pop the stem off to the best of my ability. You know what? I'm not going to pop the stem off. I'm going to cut the stem off, which is very easy. Just straight slice across the top. Don't catch your finger. All right. I can already get the smell of... Actually, I thought I had a pretty good smell of it there. So go ahead and slice it straight down the middle. All right. So, as predictable, there's a seed pod right in the middle. The walls are a little thicker than I thought they would be. I thought they'd be quite thin, but these look like they're pretty good. Has a bit of a, gosh, I can't place the smell. It's not a real strong smell. Gosh, I almost can't smell it at all. A little bit, just a faint. It's almost like a habanero, but not quite. It's like a cross between a habanero and ají pineapple. That kind of makes me excited, because from what I've read, this has kind of a fruity flavor to it, but most of the ones that say it's got a fruity flavor just taste like another one of the same category. Habaneros and Scotch bonnets taste almost the same regardless of what color they are. The only difference is red habaneros are significantly hotter than all the rest, and the brown ones feel like they've got a more mellow heat. So let me cut a little bit of this off here, because the next step is to try it. And I don't feel like burning myself out completely today. So I am going to do that which would be read in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Never read that, so this is probably not in it. And I'm just going to try a small bit. Again, I avoided the seed pod. I sort of cut up and along the side here. So let's give this a whirl and I'll tell you my thoughts. Ugh, it's not a bad flavor, but if any of you growers out there can tell me how to get, if you can tell me how to get more palatable skin on my peppers, that it has a crunchy shell, it has some pretty good flavor to it, which I'll get to in a second, but it has that same thing that the some of the Thai chilies have, wherein the skin just doesn't break apart enough and it just sort of starts to coat your teeth and then it gets caught in the back of your throat and it's not super palatable. Now that can be a number of things. This one's a little bit soft, which means it's been on the plant a little longer than it probably should have been, but it's ultra ripe. The flavor was good. It was hard to explain, or it was hard to really specify what it tasted like. This is one of the times that I'm actually going to eat my words, because that did not taste like a habanero. I want to say it was sort of somewhere, almost like it had some annuum flavor to it. Now the heat's not terrible. Now I did not have any of the part in the middle, the placenta in the middle where the seeds are, because again, seeds make me kind of not a huge fan of them. It's not bad. Just from the bit I had, which did go all the way up the side, almost to the top, but didn't have any of the placenta with it, I'd say the heat's maybe like a 3 or a 4, something like that. It's nothing ridiculous. I think that anyone who has eaten something at a spicy salsa at a Mexican restaurant has probably had something like that. This is right up there almost with like the first time I tried Diablo sauce at Taco Bell. Because the first time you try it, until you started putting like 9 packets on everything, it actually has a little bit of a bite to it. Now that was before I started cooking with hot stuff, so. Yeah, I'd say that would probably be the closest approximate. Now, for someone who doesn't eat a lot of hot stuff, it might be a little bit warmer, but this is totally manageable for me. I don't need the milk at all. I almost used it to wash it down, but I was able to get it down without too much trouble there. So the heat's already starting to dissipate. So it's definitely on the lower end of the Chinense family. This is not, I'm sure if I ate the whole thing, I would be saying a completely different story. That's a given. But if you were to seed this, and these are used often, they're stuffed. I can see stuffing them with like a cream cheese or something like that, a bacon and cream cheese type of thing. That would be really good. Some sort of a shooters or sliders. I don't know what, I think shooters is what those are. Poppers, that's what they're called. Make it kind of like a popper. That would be really good. And it would be definitely hotter than a jalapeno. Even seeded, it would be hotter than a jalapeno. And it would be a good flavor. My gosh, that would be just the thought of that in my head right there. If you were to cut the seed part of this out and just fill this up with a like a bacon infused cream cheese, or stuck a strip of rolled up bacon in the middle of it and then filled the rest with cream cheese. Oh gosh, that would be fantastic. I don't know how healthy it would be, but this isn't a health food channel, so sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much my review on this one. I would say it's good, very good. I don't know that I'll grow it again. I might try it again to see if I can make some good salsa out of it. I do like the color. It's not the light yellow like the ahi pineapple are. It's that sort of orangey-ish yellow like the 7 pots get when they finally ripen. Here's a good comparison, and one that I was going to talk about anyway. I had 2 plants cross, and They are both Capsicum bacatum. One of them is a Bishop's Crown, also known as Mad Hatter, and one was the Ahi Fantasy. The Ahi Fantasy is a yellow pod, but the Bishop's Crown, similar to it, very similar to it, has a different shaped pod to it. So an Ahi Fantasy will typically grow a 2-node thing that's got this neat little bulb to it. It almost looks like the back end of a Thanksgiving turkey. You got the legs that are tied together, and this is the body of it, and it sort of cuts short right here. But the Bishop's Crown can grow 3 and 4 prong. So this actually is the cross between the two. They're much smaller, they taste like a Bishop's Crown, they have absolutely no heat, and they ripen to yellow instead of red. And it must have been a fairly stable cross, because of the 7 plants that I grew, and I'll say that I normally only grow 2 plants, but there's a huge planter out front that I grew the Ahi Fantasy in, and not far from it I had the Bishop's Crown. In that huge pot, or in that huge flower pot, probably like a 30-gallon, something like that, but kind of tall, I just let several of them grow. And as they got to about yay tall, I thinned them all out until there were 7 of them around. So they got this nice big, I got this nice big bushy thing full of peppers, and every one of them ripened to yellow. Now I could be overthinking this. This still could just be an Ahi Fantasy. It could just be an Ahi Fantasy that grows, some of them were 3-prong, and I did not know that. But every one of the ones that grew on the other Ahi Fantasy plant that I have, from the seeds that I saved directly from the Fantasy plant last year, every one of them was this shape and much larger. So I still think this is a cross, and an interesting one at that it would be so stable after the first one that 7 plants would grow that instead of ripening red, they ripen yellow. So that was interesting. I might save the seeds from these just to sort of tinker around with them and see if maybe next year they grow the same, or if I get different results. We'll see. But that's about all the excitement I have for you. Hopefully, I might actually do a couple reviews on some plants that I have out there that are ornamental. I found a couple that I've been looking for years that were never sold locally. I finally found them at our farmer's market this year. And when I looked at one of them, the guy who was there, he was this nice Hispanic guy, very knowledgeable about plants. I was sitting there looking at him, and I said, this one looks like a, and I said the name of it, and I picked it up and I read the label, and that's exactly what it was. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, because it's still kind of a surprise. It's still kind of neat. And this is a plant that I will show off. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that. I don't know if they're going to be super edible. Willing to try it out. It could be similar to the Bolivian Rainbow in that I'm never going to eat another one again, but I'd like to try one just to see how hot they are. And I think my little guy here might be ready for me to get off camera and to entertain him somehow. Are you bored? I think he's bored. His friend Nikolai yesterday had a little run-in with some dogs. Actually, I think he did too, because I found him in the dogwood tree out front. Had a run-in with some dogs, in which he wound up about 40 feet up a Leland cypress tree. I had to build a ladder to get up the tree, because the aluminum ladder that I have here wouldn't hold me. And it was kind of in an awkward place that I couldn't put a ladder, so that was a fun time getting him down last night. He's been hanging out kind of in the same room as me all day, and he's been perching really high. I think he's a little bit shaken up, because the dogs belong to some people up the street, and from what I'm told by some neighbors, they get out a couple of times a week, and it's usually when I'm at work, I'm guessing. So I don't know. It's probably good to go ahead and keep him inside for a couple of days to mellow out a bit. But that's it from me. I'm going to finish up my milk off camera, because you don't need to see me drinking it. Who cares? And I will see you next time. I'm trying to think of what I have that could be, or what I have that'll be coming next. I got a couple ideas. So you'll see a couple more videos from me this year. It won't be anything like the 2018 and 19 videos where I had a ton of them, but I'll try and keep it going a little bit just to keep you involved. And like I said, see you next time.